Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Bridge Builders of Diversity.
Hello.
Woo, woo. Today we're going to be talking about Alzheimer's.
I know it's hard to whoop whoop when we're talking about Alzheimer's because it is a tragic condition and one that affects so many people. Let me find my number.
Many families.
So many families, so many people are impacted by this disease, and it is a brain disease. As of 2010, almost 4.7 million people over the age of 65 had Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And those are 2010 numbers, and the article that from the NIH that I took this from said, and that's National Institute of Health, in case you wonder what NIH is.
You should know that.
Well,
after COVID, you should know that.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So I just want you to know the statistic. The article that I was reading that had that nugget in it was explaining how the rate of Alzheimer's is continuing to go up, and they project that many more people are going to have Alzheimer's by the age of 65 unless we start taking preventative measures. But
which is living a healthier lifestyle, right?
Really, if you want to start with the preventative measures, I'm happy to, because it's a positive. It's something that you can do. There's 3. This is according to, again, National Institute of Health. The 3 most promising interventions that they've had so far have increased physical activity, and there's no difference between aerobic activity and like mat stretching or like a yoga type activity. But they said just keeping moving and being active, physically active, will prevent the effects of Alzheimer's. Also, reducing your blood pressure, keeping your systolic, that's the top number. I learned that. Thank you.
Kimmy's the nurse.
Thank you, Nurse Kim. I learned so much from Kim and from reading NIH articles. Keeping your top number 120 or lower. It also helps to prevent the mild cognitive impairments, or that vascular damage that happens in your brain, which eventually leads to Alzheimer's. And the 3rd preventative is cognitive training. And this was super interesting, but it got a little detailed. The way they studied it is they taught people who have beginning signs of Alzheimer's how to do these mental tasks, things like identifying pictures, arranging numbers. And they found that when they had this cognitive training, they never lost that skill, even though the Alzheimer's had impacted their cognitive abilities in other ways. But at the bottom line to that cognitive training was that doing puzzles, playing games, having social interactions. Mm-hmm. That, I think that's why I want to speak to that when we talk about people with Down syndrome and Alzheimer's. But they say that those things work better than the cognitive training because it's enjoyable and it's something that people will persist with. And it's something you can do with your family and friends. It's just getting out and being around people and trying something new.
Yeah, so people with Down syndrome do have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's. I have a son with Down syndrome, so that's something in the back of my mind. And also there is a family history in my family. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. My mother's mother had vascular dementia. And my godfather, we just recently found out, we were starting to notice weird things, like he called me to thank me for the Christmas gift, because obviously with COVID we didn't meet in person. We all drove to each other's houses and dropped off our gifts. And he called me to thank me, and it was a very strange conversation. Like, he couldn't even have that small little conversation of thanking me. I even called my mother after. I'm like, what's wrong? And
right.
None of us knew what was going on. So
he's out of character.
Totally out of character. Well-educated man, owned his own business, and everything. And so we just found out a few months ago that he has early onset dementia, which now we can kind of...
How old is he?
He's in his early 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. and I find his diagnosis has been the more devastating one. You know, my grandmothers were well into their 80s before they developed dementia,
Right.
so it seemed like a more natural progression. But here's a man just retiring, has many good years ahead of him, maybe not so much now. And it seems almost like the early onset seems to progress
More
much
progressive.
quicker.
It does, especially what you described with your godfather, and I compare that to the example with my mother. My mother had a really long road to hoe because I kept noticing lack of judgment, difficulty identifying how to use simple tools like the can opener and things like that, and lots of word finding issues. So that's probably why your conversation with your godfather was so difficult. And I would report these anecdotal tidbits to my mother's doctor, and he would say, "Oh, it's just she's slowing down. She, you can't expect her to keep up with you." And I was like, "Well, she's having these difficulties," and he pushed it off, brushed it off. And I'm not criticizing the man because it's difficult. I'm sure Kim's going to speak to this if we ever let her get a word in.
No. You've hit quite a few.
It is difficult to diagnose.
Yes.
So,
Right. And my aunt was
it was
89
a much slower
and
progression.
When you're older.
it was
It is
very
a slow
sharp up
progress.
until the last few hours before she died. Her cognitive abilities, and she is the
And
mother
that's
to
his-
my
yeah.
godfather, 89 and totally dead on.
With it.
Wow.
And with it, so it's complete opposite of it.
Right, and Alzheimer's cut my mother's life short. She only lived to be 80, and those last 10 years of her life from 70 to 80 were really just a steady decline in her ability to function
Yeah.
and be independent and have independent thoughts. So
Right.
it's a tragedy. It's so like I said, it was hard to whoop when we were talking about this one.
It's hard.
And when I was younger, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I lived with her. So you have to watch out that they don't leave stoves on and stuff
Right,
like
that
that.
core
That's very
judgment.
Yeah, that's
Safety's
one thing
huge.
maybe Kimmy can talk
Well,
about. With,
you guys hit quite a few things, and again, Alzheimer's is, it's a memory issue. In the elderly population, again, it's a slower, insidious until they really regress to childlike behaviors. They may
Right,
stop
right.
eating, all of those things. In the younger adults, or like Sherry's godfather, it takes them quicker.
Yeah, it's way
so
faster.
it's very fast, and it's one day you may wake up, they just don't remember your name.
Yeah.
And that's got to be hard for families itself. You look at families and how difficult it is. If you've watched YouTube videos, the son speaking to his mom and who are you and who are you, and he's
I
just
like your
tears running
face.
down his face. It's just it breaks your
Yeah,
heart.
I've seen videos like that where the person with Alzheimer's looks at someone that they've loved for years and years and years, whether a child or a spouse or a close friend, and they say, "Look familiar. I like your face."
Right.
yeah.
Or I think I like you, or I think I know you.
Right.
My mother. One of the more hilarious things that my mother did was she would mistake other people for me, and my friend Eva. Poor Eva, I hope you're watching because you're gonna remember this story. Came with me to go see my mom, and my mom looked right at Eva and she goes, "Roberta, your ass is fat."
Oh my God.
Oh Lord.
I'm sorry, Eve. I'm so sorry. I'm stammering, and finally I just said, "Mom, I'm over here." So
Just
you can find joy in anything, but again, tragic.
tragic.
Yeah, and you kind of have to go with the flow of those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the mistakes that I made is I used to try to correct and
no.
instruct, and I was always leaving little tools around the house to help her remember. She would overfeed her cat,
Right.
so I would leave little things around, like I would mark the cat food cans with different colors so she would remember, but then she forgot the system.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, it should really save yourself some frustration and some heartache.
But you'll also
Just
find,
roll with it.
yeah.
Yes, just roll with it. Really.
But the other thing you'll find is, my godfather was an artist. He played the drums and piano. He was a phenomenal player. He can still do that.
Isn't that
It's
great?
the long
Yeah.
term. He has
The
some
long
long
term.
term.
Yeah.
Keep them doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Again, keep that brain activity going,
Mm-hmm.
and keep being social. That was one of the things that kept popping up over and over again, was to be social.
And it's important, even as you age, to stay involved in senior groups. So you have friends, you have connections,
Right.
you know, because don't always rely on your family. Like, we had a small family, so we couldn't always be there for that social interaction. We were a close-knit family. We spent a lot of time together. But, you know, younger people are working or have kids
Right,
that
right.
have to get to activities. So make sure you stay socially active.
Right.
That's very
They
important.
do have adult daycare programs and things and such in local areas.
Right. Well, loneliness is also an indicator for later development of Alzheimer's. So you know, loneliness and that disconnect. So there's the importance of socialization, and that's where that's where I really wanted to lead to when we make the connection to people with Down syndrome. I think one of the things that let me real quick explain what I learned about people with Down syndrome developing Alzheimer's. Down syndrome, as you may or may not know, is caused by an extra copy of chromosome 21. So by the time people are in their 60s, about 2 out of 3 people with Down syndrome also have Alzheimer's. And it's the extra copy of chromosome 21 that produces a buildup of this APP protein that causes the plaques and tangles in the brain that leads to Alzheimer's. So I was thinking about people with Down syndrome and how sometimes their lives are really routine and structured. They crave those routines and they crave that structure. But my advice to somebody who lives with an adult with Down syndrome would be to shake it up, introduce them to new people, increase their social, I mean, it might be hard at first, but increase their social exposure. Yeah, have them try a new skill. Say their chore of the day is always loading the dishwasher. Well, swap out with them and have them take out the trash instead. Just like try to break up and shake up some of those routines and keep those neural pathways flexible. That may be a help.
Right.
I'm not gonna say it's a cure because I'm a teacher, not a doctor.
And
Right.
a nurse.
A nurse, I'm not a doctor, a researcher, but like it just made sense to me that when reading about how Alzheimer's develops, social connections are going to be the most important thing that you can do for yourself, for someone you love with Down syndrome, or someone you love with early onset or not.
Exactly that.
And one thing I noticed when both my grandmothers survived their husbands, and I noticed shortly after they passed away the decline. It's very rapid after that, especially when they've been together for a long time. Both my grandparents were married over 60 years.
Well, that daily stimulation.
That daily stimulation, conversation, even just somebody being around in the home. I moved in with my grandmother, but that still didn't. There was still that progression because I can't fill the shoes of my grandfather.
Right.
But a lot of times people don't want to continue going to the senior center or bowling. They used to bowl, so they had their friends a couple times a week, playing cards. So as their friends die off or their spouses, it really changes the trajectory.
It does.
So it's important to try and keep people engaged in that social activity.
Yeah.
So if you like our content, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. I am Sherry. I'm a mother of a child with Down syndrome. This is Kimmy, who's an ER nurse. And Roberta is a special educator. And we bring you fabulous content about the special needs community.
And don't forget, if there's something that you would like to learn more about, if
as a
you want
comment.
us to dive deeper into the topic of Alzheimer's and Down syndrome. We're
glad to.
always happy to do that because we love to learn new things.
Absolutely.
We could
Keep our
probably do
neural
a,
pathways supple.
we could do a seminar
Great
on
comment.
Alzheimer's.
Honestly, there could be. There's so much information, and
Oh,
we just
absolutely.
we're touching on these
We're
things
just
just to
glossing
put
over
out
the
some
surface.
information to you guys. So
We're building a bridge
We are.
for you to
Yes.
find out more, for you to make connections. Hopefully we said something that you can benefit from. So, what do they say? Mash those buttons, like,
Yes,
share,
like,
and
share and
subscribe.
Subscribe to our channel.
And thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you.
We appreciate
thanks
you guys.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye guys.
Bye.